This is Gabe from MotoringFile, and we have a brand new Mini Countryman SE for the next few days. We're actually going to take it further than I've ever taken one of these cars. We're going to take it across the lake to Michigan. We're going to see how it is to actually live with this car, road trip with it, and even maybe in a snowstorm. So we'll find out. Right now, I am attempting to charge this thing. However, this is a sort of a secret fast charger at this Mini dealer, Mini of Glencoe. It's currently not working for some reason. Don't know why. Everything else, so a smaller range than normal. But let's talk about the car really briefly. You know, as you can see, this is a fairly expensive Mini, $49,720. This is a car that has pretty much everything on it. Iconic trim, Comfort Plus, as well as the favored styles. All the sort of things that you would normally get with that car. It's got the funky brown and blue interior, which I kind of dig. With this color combination, it works really well. I know it doesn't work on every combination, but in general, pretty exciting. And I've always thought this car is great, but I've never really driven long distances. So let's see how great it really is. All right, we've got a journey ahead today. We are leaving Mini of Glencoe, which is in Glencoe, Illinois, just north of Chicago on Chicago's North Shore. Big shout out to Mini of Glencoe for allowing us to take this car. Press cars have been few and far between right now into the year from Mini USA, and so our local dealer, who has always been so kind to us, has been happy, always excited to give us anything we want to test these cars. Highly encourage if you're in the area or looking for a Mini. They've got a fair amount of Minis, as well as actually 2 Clubmen still available, brand new. These are not JCWs, but still they're great cars. So you might want to check that out. They're not going to last long. Heading south around the lake, and we're going to be heading to a small town called Saugatuck. And the thing about Saugatuck and western Michigan in this time of year is it snows a lot. Lake effect snow is very prevalent in that area. Apparently there's a winter storm warning that's going to be in effect tonight, and so we're going to have to feel that out tomorrow morning as we head back. But nonetheless, it'll be interesting. All right, let's get going a little bit. The new Cooper looks great. Like I said, there's some Club in here, which is kind of look awesome. There's a Porsche Macan T right over here, which, by the way, great car. 4-door John Works trim. We don't get the 2-door, of course. Don't get me started on that. The 2-door trim, that is. And there's a Sprinter van. Oh my God, that's cool. Okay, a lot here. Obviously, come check it out. Again, huge thanks to Mini and Glencoe. All right, that out of the way, let's get to the highway. Quick update, I am a couple miles in, and I just have to remark on how easy this car is to use. A lot of people talk about the complexity of this interface, and I completely understand why, because it is all new, and this is something that as a Mini owner you might not be used to. Again, once you kind of get it dialed in, shameless plug, watch some of the videos we have on OS 9, Mini OS 9 and MotoringFile's YouTube page and MotoringFile. Once you really start to understand it, by the second or third time, it's easy. And what I just experienced, pop in, dial this this high-speed charging station, which is, I believe, is in Michigan City, which is ironically in Indiana, as it turns out. Got it, done. Tells me how long it's going to be, of course. Also says it's going to you know, prep my battery for charging. Great. I hit cruise control, immediately goes to adaptive cruise. The steering wheel is turning for me. Of course, there's adaptive you know, acceleration as well. Everything is just dialed in. Everything is just perfect. The car is comfortable, and it's important to note that. I mean, this is by far the most comfortable Mini I've ever experienced. There's a lot of reasons for it. I think for one, Mini has done a great job of just creating, or I should say iterating on the suspension. Calibration, of course, has been revised. The components themselves have been revised. And there's also the mass of this car, which on the face of it is you know, it's a lot. It's heavy, you know, it's over 4,000 pounds, well over. But it's actually interesting because all the weight's down low, and that sort of serves as a way to balance out a lot of the harshness that you might have felt in the past. It feels very planted. It's you know, go-kart-ish, if you will, maybe, but it feels very planted. It feels very quick. and above all, very comfortable and quiet. The battery being on the floor for the, you know, it's not like a skateboard chassis per se, but it's down low. Actually has this sort of knock-on effect of insulating the car from noise from the floor, from the road. Not entirely, of course, but much more so than we've seen in the past. There's still a little bit of A-pillar noise here and there, but man, quietest Mini ever, most comfortable Mini ever. Once you get the hang of it, I think extremely easy to use. Really impressive so far. So I'm sure we'll be back with some things I don't like. I don't know. We'll get there. Hopefully it's not stranded on the side of the road, but Chicago is directly in front of me. I see the skyscrapers. Made a quick pit stop in Chicago at the wonderful French Market, which is in the sort of near West Loop, just off of the Loop, which is downtown. And I do have a couple things I want to just complain, if you will, or call out. As much as I think the interface is strong in this car, they've done a really good job. It is sluggish to start. So like starting this thing up and just going like I like, it takes a minute. It takes a second to do that. We know that there's going to be further iterations, but nonetheless, it's still, how do I put it? Slower than I'd like. Okay, we are here at Electrify America. This is the one and only. It's a company that's been the punchline for a little bit around charging, but it is the fastest charger I could find. It's actually not too bad, as you can see. We've got, let's see, 128. You know, we're going quick. We're really cooking for a Mini, and I say for a Mini because Minis don't charge super fast. 150 is theoretically as fast as it goes. As I sit next to the Ioniq 5, this is a car that charges more than double that. Of course, we've got Teslas down there, etc., which also are similar to the Ioniq 5. So it's not the fastest charging car, but that said, I mean, listen, I'm going to get to 48% in 12 minutes. I was down to 25%, and so I basically had $10 I spent on this thing. It's going to give me a bunch of miles, way cheaper than gas, and it's going to be pretty quick. So all things considered, I can't complain too much. Just exited the highway. We are nearing our destination. I have 54 miles of range. Everything is really kind of stayed true in terms of the projected range I had. Of course, that pit stop was critical for my sanity. Probably, well, we would have made it, no question, but wanted it to be ultra sure. And so, quick thoughts. You know, what is it like to drive a, you know, the Mini Countryman SE, the full electric Countryman, on a bit of a road trip? You know, it's a 2.5, 3 hours with some stops. I think for one, I mentioned this before, I mean, it's comfortable. You know, it's really comfortable. It's quiet. This is the best from a just a comfort and a noise perspective. It's the best road trip car Mini's ever made. Now, it's not the best road trip car Mini's ever made overall. Obviously, as an electric car, there's some clear issues, if you will, and you know, those issues really, I think, derive, you know, I should say, sort of sit in two categories. One, lack of charging infrastructure. Had no problem finding what I needed today, even a fast charger. Got it, no worries. But they're not as prevalent as you want. And really the bigger problem, in my view, is charging speed. So Mini's charging software and system in this car goes up to 150 kilowatts. 150 is on the low end for an electric car. You've got cars like the Ioniq 5, of course Teslas, and a lot of other cars that are just coming onto the market now that are double that speed. Some not quite double, but there are some that are double. And I think that as you start to live with an electric car, you realize like that's kind of the limiting factor in a way. It's not so much the range, although that's potentially a limiting factor. It's how fast I have to sit and wait for this thing to fill back up. And so, you know, like I said, or you saw earlier, got about 25% of my range back in about 10 minutes. And that was great. You know, that was great. But obviously in a gas car, in an ICE car, I'm getting all of my range back in 5 minutes. If you are solely commuting with a road trip thrown in every once in a while? The answer is, in my view, yeah, no question. It's really an ideal vehicle for that scenario. If you are road tripping, you know, over 200 miles at a time for a destination, so not round trip, I would choose a different car. If you're doing that all the time, if you're doing it once a month, if you're doing it, you know, something along those lines, then yeah, give it a shot. I mean, I think it's such a compelling option in any other scenario that you could overcome that hurdle. It's not a hard hurdle to overcome at all. And when you think about, you know, okay, what is that hurdle? Like, well, you know, depending on how far you're going, it's basically sitting and have a sandwich for about 10 to 15 minutes. If you can find a high-speed charger, which again, they're fairly prevalent right now. And they're going to become more so. Day one with the SE, or I should say sort of leg one, got a little bit more to go tomorrow, heading back, and we could see some snow. And in the meantime, I'm going to drive this thing around. We've got some really nice curvy roads around us here. Going to get to know this car off the highway a little bit. Day two, and not unexpected, our Mini Countryman SE did not charge fully. It's definitely not its fault. It's the fault of this very old grid that's here. So I am gonna have to make a little bit of a deviated path to charge here, which is okay. I mean, you know, just kind of getting ready. We've got a little bit of time. There's some high-speed chargers on the way. Stop, maybe get about 20 minutes of charge and should be good. But, you know, this is one of those things where electric cars represent a little bit of the Wild West. It's not quite perfect yet. This is all new. And I mean, electric cars are not new. They've been around now, you know, fairly prevalent for about 8-9 years. In mass adoption, of course, a little bit less. But the charging infrastructure just isn't there, which means that this Countryman SE is a great car for a very specific use case. The good news is that use case is really broad. Most people actually, in my view, would probably fall into that use case, which is I commute in this car, I'm driving under 50 miles a day, I have the ability to plug this in at home and essentially rinse and repeat. I may have a road trip once a month. It's probably going to be under 200 miles. I might need a little charge on the way there, maybe not. And that's it. And really, when you think about it, like, that makes sense, because this trip I'm taking, have had done it a couple times. This would have been a lot quicker or simpler. I wouldn't have been figuring it out. I would have already figured it out once. And I think that's a key thing. You know, so for instance, this house, I would have an electrician come out and fix the power grid, fix the wiring, so I could make sure I get 220 out to the car. You know, little things like that. You would have to figure out as an owner. Is it hard? No, I don't think so, honestly. Is it annoying maybe the first or second time? Yeah, it is. And I think that's the thing that puts people off the concept of an electric car, that unknown. You know, the unknown of, is this gonna work? How does this work? What happens if? You know, all of these things that, you know, we don't have, and you don't have answers for until you've done it, until you sort of figure out what those problem statements are and how to solve them. I'm actually going to do a quick search for, go to the nav, and actually, you know, I really like that Electrify America place I went before, but I'm curious to see, we're gonna go ahead and search for charging stations. And what's really cool about this, and again, I give Mini a ton of kudos here from a design perspective, interaction perspective, it works well. So I just simply click charge. I see everything around me, of course, naturally, but I can filter, and I'm gonna just go high powered charging because I don't want to sit around. Let's just get to the point, and let's take a look at what is quote unquote high powered in my area. So straight away, I see the one that I started, that I actually was at before, which is great. 6 of 6 are available. It's outside of a Meijer, which is sort of like a Walmart for the Midwest. So that's definitely one option. I can move the map around and of course hit search here, and it'll do that, which is great. I mean, everything about it makes a ton of sense. I'm gonna actually there's one that's a little closer to to my destination. That said, it's I'll have 13% left from a battery perspective versus 35%. So they're both 350 kilowatts. They're both fast. That's the question. Do I want to stretch it, or do I want to, sort of take the easy route and kind of stop early? I don't know. That's a great question. I will consider that. This is, again, another thing that you don't think about where I'm stopping for gas, for petrol. Like, obviously in an ICE car, that infrastructure has been built over the past 100 plus years. And trust that it'll just be there. So you take it for granted. This car, you just simply can't take that for granted yet. Getting closer though. We're almost there. We have half a mile to go. Thankfully, I have 12 miles left of battery power. So we decided just to go for it, and like you might. And here we are. Let's see, where is this? This is a sort of good old urban sprawl here. It's hard to even know sometimes which giant box store I'm supposed to be turning at. Oh, it's going to be this one. Let's just go ahead and take a hard left and see if we can find this. So, as is the case for a lot of these chargers in just off the highway, they're kind of in the corner of giant box stores. This one is next to, again, a Meijer. I'm just going to assume Meijer made an agreement with Electrify America, which makes sense because, hey, you know what? Meijer is kind of like a Walmart. They sell everything. The only downside is you could not get further away from the Meijer than this. But hey, no worries. That's a first world problem. Walking is not a big deal. So let's throw it in reverse and let's back up and make the, I'd say, very good assumption that this thing's going to charge just fine. So be right back. So 41 minutes left to get 80%. So think about that. I mean, 41 minutes I will sit here to get to 80%. I don't have to tell you that's a little bit slower than gasoline and pumping, but there we go. So we're going to go and sit inside this warm car because it's cold. This is a good sign. So we're charging over 100 kilowatts, 104. It's going to be, let's see, roughly, it's going to be a little bit of time for us to get charged up to 100%. I'll say that. Looks like it's going to be an hour and 20. So what is this really proving out? So I've had this car now for 2 days, and I wanted to do this test because commuting in these cars is so simple and so easy. And quite honestly, it's such a great choice for most people. The Countryman SE is the Countryman that a lot of people should buy, full stop. If you're going to get a Countryman, it's a great product. It really is surprisingly good. But the second you start to take it out of that, typical sort of commuting or weekend car state, and you start to get into rural America or on very long trips, you're going to be faced with the inevitable issues of charging and charging speed. Any electric car will have that right now, but because the Countryman's range is lower and EPA is 204, we can see it going up to 220 at times and down to, as you see today, it was at 184, 100% yesterday, in fact, and that was at 34 degrees. So there's a big swing there, a 40-mile swing depending on weather alone. And let's say it was at 204. Even at 204, I'm driving this car 180 miles one way, 180 miles the next way. It's going to require some charging. There's no way around it. And if you can't charge at home, you have to charge in an environment like this, staring at a screen like this. So that's kind of the scenario here. I'm going to dial in a departure plan and kind of figure that out. What that will do is really, really important is to actually precondition the battery as well. You can set, and this is where it gets really interesting. When we think about, this experience, when we think about the scenario that we're playing out today, this is not normal for these type of vehicles. Like I said yesterday, previously in this video, if this was my normal, I would not buy an electric vehicle. However, if I was commuting every day in this car, I would very seriously consider the Countryman SE over the Countryman S, or even the JCW at times. The EV experience, again, in my experience, is wonderful. For the vast majority of people out there, it represents a upgrade in a lot of ways from a commuter car perspective. If that's not your scenario and that's not your sort of, you know, the thing that you're trying to solve for when you're looking to buy a car, definitely look at a petrol car. Countryman S is great. Countryman JCW is great. If you want to go smaller, of course, the 5-door or 4-door, depending on how you look at it. F65, which we just reviewed a couple weeks ago, a really, really fun choice. And let's be honest, a little more fun than this car. Much, much lighter, much smaller. And if you really want to go old school, or not old school, but small, nothing beats the mini hatch. But I think, my suspicion is that the majority of people buying a 4-door hatch and looking at a Countryman would be really better suited with an electric vehicle if they have at-home charging, or if they can get at-home charging. And if that's the case, then go for it. My recommendation is to go test drive these cars. I mean, they are available now to test drive at many dealers. They're really, really impressive. There's a little bit of a learning curve. Mini OS, no matter what new Mini you're getting, there's a little bit of a learning curve here when we think about the various things we have to do to sort of get the most out of it. Again, not rocket science, but listen, it's new, and you've got to kind of wrap your head around that as just new technology. So what have the last 2 days taught us? I've had this car now for about 380 miles, and the whole point in this test was really, what are the limits from a distance and from a use case perspective around the Mini Countryman SE. We know it's a great commuter car. That's not a question. In fact, as I said, I mean, I would go as far as to say most people who buy a Countryman probably should buy this car when I think about the use cases they have. But that said, not everybody should buy this car. There's plenty of people out there that live in certain places that it doesn't make sense, or they just drive too far in a single day. And so I know for me that this car fits really well with my day-to-day, but I also do, every couple of weeks, I'll drive a few hundred miles. Every week sometimes I do that on the weekends. And so how does the Countryman SE, with a range that goes from 184 in the low end, which is what we saw yesterday and today at 30 degrees, up to about 220 if you're just purely in the city and it's like 80 degrees every day. How does that range work with the needs that I have, at least? And what I've found is it's all doable once you figure out how to fit it in your life. So for instance, the place that I stayed at, this is the first time I've taken an electric car there. The electric, the 220 outlet outside didn't work. Well, I would get it fixed. At-home charging, it's a must. I have that personally, but if you don't, you're gonna need it. Knowing when and where to stop if you need to, and sort of creating your schedule around that, also kind of a requirement. These are things that you figure out, though. It's none of it's rocket science. And here's the trick: when you figure them out, when you get this thing dialed in terms of your daily life, your weekend life, the things you do for fun, I think most people will find it works for them. And once you do, I think you'll find it to be an awesome, awesome product. Once you get OS 9 dialed in and your shortcuts set, once you learn how to use it inside and out, these are all things that kind of add up to unlocking what the Mini Countryman SE is and can be. And I think that's really the punchline and experience I've had the last couple of days. We already knew this is a really, really good product. In talking with folks who sell these cars, what I hear time and time again is when they have people drive this car versus the ICE, the Countryman S, a lot of the salespeople will hear potential customers say, wow, the electric is just so much better. It just feels better. And I think that's just inherent in EVs. EVs are are so smooth, so easy to drive, so easy to live with. If you get all these things dialed in, that they become almost a no-brainer. And you know, personally for me, I hate that EVs have become politicized, and the comments on MotoringFile social channels always bear that out. And the reality is, not every car is perfect for everybody. The fact this has got a battery underneath it versus internal combustion in the front. Hey, listen, there's trade-offs in every scenario, and there's no reason why you have to assign political beliefs with one or the other. I just don't think it makes any sense. But what does make sense is, if you're looking at this car, you're thinking about it, go test drive it and do it with an open mind. You know, if it doesn't work for you, great. There's other options out there. I would say the Countryman S is great, the Countryman JCW. If you want to go smaller, of course, the 4/5 door Mini Cooper as well. But as it stands, I mean, it is a great commuter, and I think it's a great road trip car to a degree. If you can get things really planned ahead of time, and like I said, you dial in that charging, whether it's at home, whether it's in a place you go on the weekends, you kind of figure out your sort of regiment, you get something that is really compelling. And I have really enjoyed my time with this car. A couple downsides. I'm not gonna not mention this. I think, again, shortcuts mandatory to figure that out for everybody. You have to really understand how to use this thing to get the most out of it. A couple other things. The braking is I haven't talked about this before, but the switch over from sort of engine braking, for lack of a better term, where I'm recouping energy and putting it back in the batteries, to actual friction-based caliper pad rotor braking, it's not as seamless as you want. What do I mean? There's a moment where you do feel a slight change in the way they engage, and you'll get used to it for sure, but it is there. And if you're thinking about, you know, purity of driving experience, obviously you're probably not thinking about this car. You know, this is not a Lotus, nor is it an R53, nor is it even an F56 or F66 Mini Cooper. But it doesn't feel quite as nice. The feedback through the brake pedal isn't quite as transparent as it is in the ICE cars. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but it's not perfect. A couple other things. The weight, yes, it's heavy. You do feel it when you hustle it. It's down low, but this isn't a skateboard chassis, so the weight isn't as low as it could possibly be. It could be lower, and because of that, yeah, you know, you can go fast in this car. The limits are quickly sort of uncovered when you start to turn the wheel and turn it, you know, in an aggressive manner. So, you know, in corners you'll feel that. Again, like, deal breaker, absolutely not. Like, this thing is fast. The grip is good. You know, these are all seasons. It's snowing out, and I have no problem. So, you know, it's worth noting the EV nature of this car and the way BMW's designed the software. The traction control is unbelievably good. So, you know, no worries there. I would imagine in snow with snow tires, this thing's just a monster. So obviously some caveats. I know I'm glossing over some things. You know, the interior, make of it what you will. I like it. I like the seats quite a bit. The dash, it's funky, it's cool. I would not spec this car this way, you know, for sure. I still think that there's some things that they need to work on interior-wise, some plastics that just aren't very high quality, unfortunately. The wheels outside, they're 18s, but they look like 16s. Like, there's some things that Mini needs to tweak. And let's not even get into the fact that we just need more options in these cars. We need to be able to mix and match options that you can't for some strange reason. So, you know, a lot of those things, shift paddles, like, we could go on and on. There's things that Mini needs to do, and just read MotoringFile, you'll see us talk about that a lot. But all that said, for this car, for the EV, a lot of that doesn't matter. What you have is what you have, and I honestly think it may be the most refined Mini sold in America today. The drive is is really very good. The lease deals you can get on these cars right now, it depends on the scenario situation, but around $400. This is a really, really good deal if you want to go that route. It's a lot of car for that money. And even if you're paying what you are, you know, this is about a $50,000 car, knowing what cars cost these days, you know, it's again, it's not a bad deal. Fast forward a few years, used, this will be a better deal. Now you'll deal with some battery degradation, no question, but still there's value here, and I think you're going to see value sort of increase over the years when you think about these cars as used as well. And so that's pretty much it. 2 days, I have come away with, you know, a little bit more appreciation for this car, the comfort, the utility. You know, this is an easy car to live with, real easy. And given the fact that this is also a Mini, it's funky, it's fun. This does not feel like an appliance. It does not look like an appliance like a lot of the other electric cars out there. It's a really unique value prop, and it's one that I think more people should go out and test drive. It's really that good. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you reached the end of this, it's been a long one. I appreciate it. Give us a like if you like the video, and of course subscribe. We have a ton more coming, a lot more in-depth reviews, a lot more how-tos on Mini OS 9. So much to get out of this system, and just a lot of exclusive news that's coming up in 2025. Until then, cheers.